The message came through the cold silence of space. Fleet Commander Voss stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, reading the words that would change everything. The High Council had made their decision. Earth was to be conquered. Voss had heard of Earth before. Every officer in the hegemony had studied reports about the small blue planet at the edge of explored space. The humans who lived there were young. They had only discovered space travel 100 years ago. They had not even built colonies on other planets. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were primitive. They still fought wars among themselves over small pieces of land and old disagreements. The perfect target. Voss called his captains together through holographic display. 12,000 warships waited for his command. Each ship carried weapons that could turn cities to ash. Each captain had conquered worlds before. This mission would be simple, quick, clean. "We approach in standard formation," Voss told them. "Disable their communications first. Destroy their orbital defenses second. Then we descend to the surface and accept their surrender." One captain raised a question. "And if they resist?" Voss almost smiled. "They always resist at first. Then they see the size of our fleet. Then they understand." Far across the galaxy, on the planet Earth, a woman named Una sat in an underground command center beneath the city of Seoul. She wore the uniform of an admiral, though her nation had not built navies for water in many years. Her navy sailed among the stars now. A young officer named Taiho rushed to her station. His face was pale. "Admiral, we have confirmed contact. 12,000 ships. They will arrive in 3 days." Una did not panic. She did not shout orders or demand explanations. She simply nodded once and spoke 2 words that Taiho did not understand. "Wake it." Taiho blinked. "Admiral?" "The grid. Wake the grid." Taiho had served under Admiral Una for 5 years. He had heard rumors about something called the grid. Everyone in the military had heard rumors, but no one knew what it actually was. Some said it was a weapon. Some said it was a shield. Some said it was just a story told to make young soldiers feel brave. "The grid is real?" Taiho asked. Una finally looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but serious. "Lieutenant, everything you think you know about Earth's defenses is a lie. Everything the enemy thinks they know is an even bigger lie. We have been preparing for this day for 80 years. She stood and walked to the main display screen. With a few touches, she brought up images that Taiho had never seen before. Satellites that were marked as weather stations but held missile launchers inside. Research bases on the moon that were actually fortresses. Mining ships in the asteroid belt that carried weapons instead of ore. "Every civilian satellite has a second purpose," Una explained. "Every space station hides guns behind its walls. Every ship we sent to explore the outer planets was actually placing weapons in secret locations. We built all of this quietly, slowly, while the galaxy watched us fight each other and thought we were weak." Taiho stared at the screen. The numbers were impossible. Thousands of hidden weapons, millions of automated defense units. A network that covered the entire solar system. "Why?" he whispered. "Why did we build all this?" "Because we looked up at the stars and knew we were not alone," Una said. "And we knew that whatever lived out there might not be friendly. We hoped we were wrong. We prepared as if we were right." A new officer entered the command center. His name was Do-Wan, and he served as Una's second in command. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands from wars fought long ago. "All stations report ready," Do-Wan said. "The grid is waking up. Full activation in 6 hours." Una nodded. "And our people?" "Yunji has the lunar array online. Sangho is arming the orbital platforms. Ji-Yon's submarines are moving into position." These names meant nothing to Taiho, but he could see from the Admiral's face that they meant everything. These were the people who would fight the coming battle. Scientists and soldiers who had trained their whole lives for a war they hoped would never come. "What about civilians?" Taiho asked. Should we warn them? Evacuate the cities? Yuna shook her head. If we evacuate, the enemy will know we are preparing. They will change their approach. They will be careful. She paused. I do not want them to be careful. I want them to be confident. I want them to fly straight into our guns, believing we cannot hurt them. That seems cruel, Taiho said quietly. War is cruel, Yuna replied. But a short war is less cruel than a long one. If we do this right, the battle will be over before most people wake up tomorrow. They will never need to know how close we came to destruction. She turned back to the main display. The enemy fleet was still 3 days away, but she could almost see them already. Thousands of ships filled with soldiers who thought they were coming to claim an easy victory. Commanders who had studied Earth and seen only weakness. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Send a message to all grid commanders, Yuna ordered. Tell them to check their systems one more time. When the enemy arrives, we will have one chance. One moment. We cannot waste it. Do-wan nodded and left to deliver the orders. Taiho remained, watching the admiral stare at the screen. He wanted to ask her if she was afraid. He wanted to ask her if they could really win against 12,000 warships with hidden guns and secret bases. But he saw the look in her eyes, and he understood something. Admiral Yuna was not afraid. She was ready. She had been ready for this moment her entire life. Earth was about to show the galaxy what humanity could do. The hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12,000 warships hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal insects, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a continent. Commander Voss stood at the observation window of his flagship and watched the distant blue dot that was his target. It was beautiful, he thought. Such a shame it had to be broken before it could be owned. Begin approach, he ordered. Standard conquest formation. I want all ships in attack position within 6 hours. His officers moved quickly. They had done this many times before. 47 planets had fallen to the hegemony using these exact tactics. First, they would appear in overwhelming numbers. Then they would send a message demanding surrender. Then, when the primitives refused or failed to respond, they would demonstrate their power by destroying something important. After that, surrender always came quickly. Voss had no reason to think Earth would be different. On the planet below, Admiral Yuna received the alert at 3 in the morning. She had not slept. She had been sitting in the command center for 2 days, watching screens and checking reports. When the alarm sounded, she simply straightened in her chair and spoke. They are here. All stations, begin protocol horizon. Around the world, people woke in the darkness and went to work. They did not wear uniforms. They did not march in formations. Most of them looked like ordinary workers going to ordinary jobs, but each one carried secrets that could end worlds. On the moon, a woman named Yunji sat in a control room carved deep beneath the surface. She was a physicist, not a soldier. She had spent 30 years studying energy and light and the mathematics of destruction. The weapon she had built was elegant and terrible. It could cut through starship armor like sunlight through glass. Lunar array is charged and ready, she reported through her communicator. Targeting systems locked on enemy fleet. In orbit around Earth, a man named Sangho commanded a space station called Hanyul. It was registered as a research platform. Scientists came and went, studying stars and planets and the mysteries of space. But behind the walls of laboratories and sleeping quarters, hidden machines waited. Missile launchers, energy projectors, things that had never been used but had been tested 1,000 times in secret. Orbital platforms armed, Sangho reported. 47 stations ready to fire on command. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a submarine glided through the dark water. Its commander was a woman named Ji-Yon. Her crew was small but well-trained. They had spent years practicing for this moment. The weapons they carried were not missiles or torpedoes. They were something new, something that had never been used in war. "Submarine fleet in position," Jiyon reported. "Payload ready for deployment." Admiral Yuna listened to each report and felt something like peace settle over her. Everything was in place. 80 years of preparation, thousands of workers, trillions of dollars spent in secret. All of it came down to this moment. Lieutenant Taiho watched the enemy fleet on the main screen. "They are not even trying to hide," he said. "They want us to see them coming." "Of course they do," Yuna replied. "They think their numbers will frighten us. They think we will panic and surrender." "Will we?" Yuna almost smiled. "No." Commander Do-Wan approached with a tablet in his hand. "Admiral, the enemy is broadcasting a message. Standard surrender demand. They want an answer within 1 hour." "Do not reply." Do-Wan raised an eyebrow. "No response at all?" "Silence will confuse them. They expect fear or defiance. Silence is neither. It will make them uncomfortable." Yuna turned back to the screen. "Let them wonder what we are planning." Aboard his flagship, Commander Voss waited for Earth's response. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing came. His communications officer checked the equipment 3 times. There was no malfunction. Earth was simply not answering. "Perhaps their governments cannot agree on a response," one captain suggested. "Perhaps they are paralyzed with fear," said another. Voss was not sure. Something felt wrong. He had conquered many worlds, and all of them had responded to his ultimatum. Some begged for mercy. Some screamed threats they could not back up. Some tried to negotiate. None had simply stayed silent. "Continue the approach," he ordered. "If they will not answer words, they will answer weapons." The fleet moved closer. On Earth, Yuna watched them come. A clock on the wall counted down the time until the enemy reached optimal range. When they crossed that line, there would be no going back for either side. 47 seconds to engagement range, Taiho reported. Yuna stood. Her joints ached from sitting too long. Her eyes burned from staring at screens. But her voice was steady when she gave the order that would change human history. "All stations, weapons free!" Across the solar system, machines that had waited decades for this moment came alive. On the moon, Yunji pressed a button that released stored energy equal to a small sun. In orbit, Sangho watched targeting computers lock onto enemy ships with perfect precision. Beneath the ocean, Jiyan opened tubes and sent her terrible weapons rising toward the sky. The hegemony fleet flew forward, confident and proud. They had no idea that they were flying into a trap. They had no idea that the next 60 seconds would destroy everything they believed about their own power. They had no idea that humanity had been waiting for them all along. The countdown reached 0, and space itself seemed to catch fire. The first second was silence. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. The hegemony fleet continued its approach toward Earth, 12,000 ships flying in perfect formation. Then the second came, and alarms began screaming on every bridge in the fleet. Commander Voss spun toward his tactical officer. "What is happening?" "Unknown energy signatures, Commander, thousands of them, coming from everywhere." On the main display, the planet Earth suddenly looked different. Points of light appeared across its surface, on its moon, scattered through the space around it, like stars waking up in a dark sky, like eyes opening all at once. The third second brought understanding. These were weapons. Thousands upon thousands of weapons, hidden in places the hegemony had never thought to look. Satellites that seemed harmless, stations that looked empty, ships that appeared to be simple cargo haulers. All of them were firing now. The 5th second brought the first wave of death. From platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, small metal rods launched at incredible speed. They were not fancy weapons. They carried no explosives. They were simply pieces of tungsten, accelerated until they moved faster than anything the hegemony had ever faced. When you move something fast enough, it does not need explosives. The energy of impact is enough. 43 hegemony ships vanished in the 5th second. They did not explode. They did not burn. They simply stopped existing. One moment, they were there. The next moment, there was only expanding gas and scattered metal, too hot to touch and too broken to recognize. Commander Voss grabbed his command chair as his ship shook from nearby impacts. "Return fire! All ships, return fire!" But his weapons officers could not find targets. The enemy fire came from too many directions. It moved too fast to track. Their defense systems, designed to stop missiles and energy beams, could not even see the tungsten rods before they hit. The 8th second brought the second wave. From the moon, beams of concentrated light sliced through space at the speed of light itself. There was no warning, no flash to show they were coming. Ships simply fell apart, cut into pieces by invisible blades. Dr. Yunji watched her screens in the lunar control room. Each beam struck exactly where her computers aimed it. Years of calculations, decades of testing, all of it working perfectly. She felt no joy, only grim satisfaction that her work was doing what it was designed to do. The 15th second saw 100 ships destroyed. The 20th second saw 200 more. The hegemony formation, so elegant minutes ago, became chaos. Ships tried to scatter. They crashed into each other. Debris from destroyed vessels became new weapons, tearing through the hulls of survivors. Commander Voss watched his fleet die around him. His voice had gone hoarse from shouting orders that no one could follow. "Fall back! All ships, fall back!" His navigation officer shook his head. "The fold space drives need 40 seconds to charge. We cannot jump." 40 seconds, an eternity in this battle. The 30th second brought something new. Submarine Commander Ji Yon's weapons had finally reached space. They looked like ordinary missiles, but they carried no explosives. Instead, they carried tiny machines, billions of them. Machines so small they could not be seen with the naked eye. These nanomachines spread through the hegemony fleet like a disease. They crawled into ships through tiny cracks in armor. They found electrical systems and ate them. They found computers and destroyed them. They turned advanced warships into floating coffins. Captain Sangho watched from his orbital station as enemy ships went dark. Their lights flickered and died. Their engines stopped. Their weapons fell silent. The nanomachines did not kill crews directly. They simply took away everything that kept the crews alive. The 40th second, half the hegemony fleet was gone. Destroyed or disabled or drifting without power. Escape pods launched from dying ships, tiny dots of light fleeing into the darkness. Commander Voss stood in red emergency lighting. His main systems had failed. His weapons would not fire. His communications were dead. Through the observation window, he could see his fleet breaking apart. Ships he had commanded for 20 years, officers he had trained personally, all of them dying in the darkness, while a planet they had come to conquer watched in silence. The 50th second brought plasma torpedoes from the orbital stations. These weapons were not subtle. They burned bright orange as they flew, seeking out the heat signatures of enemy ships. Each impact created a brief new sun, beautiful and terrible. 55 seconds. The hegemony fleet had effectively ceased to exist. A few ships still flew, damaged and desperate. Most were debris. The rest were dark hulks floating without power, their crews trapped inside. Commander Voss tried to send a surrender signal. His communications panel was dead. He tried to wave a white flag through the observation window. There was no one close enough to see. The minute never finished. When 60 seconds should have passed, there was no one left to count them. The greatest fleet the hegemony had ever assembled against a single planet was scattered across millions of kilometers of space, 12,000 ships reduced to wreckage and memory. In the Seoul Command Center, Admiral Yuna watched the last enemy signatures fade from her screen. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear. From the simple effort of staying calm while the weight of history pressed down on her shoulders. "Report," she said quietly. Lieutenant Taeho's voice was barely a whisper. "Enemy fleet neutralized. Estimated 98% casualties. Detecting approximately 2,000 life pods with survivors. 2,000 survivors from 12,000 ships." The math was horrifying. Commander Do-won stood beside her. His face was pale. "Admiral, we won. We actually won." Yuna did not feel like celebrating. She felt tired. She felt old. She felt the weight of every death, enemy and friend alike, settling onto her shoulders. "Send rescue ships for the survivors," she ordered. "They are prisoners of war now. They will be treated with dignity." She turned away from the screen. The battle was over. The war was just beginning. But humanity had sent its message to the stars. Earth would not be conquered. Not today. Not ever. The debris field stretched across thousands of kilometers. Metal and glass and frozen bodies floated in the darkness, slowly spreading outward into the empty space between worlds. Where 12,000 warships had flown just hours ago, there was now only wreckage and silence. Admiral Yuna stood in the command center, watching rescue ships move through the destruction. Small vessels with medical teams aboard, searching for survivors among the ruins of the hegemony fleet. Each time they found a life pod with living beings inside, they brought it back to Earth's orbital stations for processing. No one cheered. No one celebrated. The command center was quiet except for the soft sounds of computers and the occasional voice reporting another rescue. Lieutenant Taeho approached her with a tablet. "Final count, Admiral. 2,347 survivors recovered. Commander Voss is among them. His flagship lost power but maintained life support long enough for rescue." Yuna nodded slowly. "What is his condition?" "Minor injuries. He is being treated at the Lunar Medical Facility." Taeho hesitated. "He has requested to speak with whoever is in charge. I am sure he has many questions. Should we grant the request?" Yuna thought about it. Meeting the enemy commander face to face, looking into the eyes of a man who had come to enslave her world. Part of her wanted to refuse. Part of her wanted to make him wait, to let him sit in his cell and wonder what would happen next. But another part of her understood something important. This man was not evil. He was simply doing what his leaders had ordered. He had attacked Earth because that was his duty. Now he was a prisoner, alone and confused, watching everything he believed about the universe fall apart around him. "I will speak with him myself," Yuna decided. The Lunar Medical Facility was clean and bright. Human doctors and nurses moved through the halls, caring for injured hegemony soldiers alongside injured human rescue workers. There was no anger here, no hatred, just professionals doing their jobs. Commander Voss sat in a private room, his arm wrapped in bandages from a cut he had received during the battle. When Admiral Yuna entered, he stood slowly. His movements were stiff, careful, like a man who expected to be attacked at any moment. "Please sit," Yuna said. "Your injuries need rest." Voss sat. His eyes never left her face. "You are the one who commands Earth's defenses?" "I am Admiral Yuna, yes." "How?" The word came out rough, almost desperate. "How did you do this? Our intelligence said you were primitive, divided, weak. We studied your planet for decades. We saw nothing that could threaten our fleet." Yuna pulled up a chair and sat across from him. "You saw what we wanted you to see. That is impossible. Our sensors, our spies, our analysis systems, they are the most advanced in the galaxy. And they showed you exactly what we designed them to show." Yuna folded her hands in her lap. "Commander, we have known about the hegemony for 60 years. We detected your scout ships. We intercepted your communications. We studied your conquest patterns, and we understood very clearly that one day you would come for us." Voss stared at her. 60 years of preparation? 60 years of building weapons in secret. 60 years of hiding our true capabilities. 60 years of letting you believe we were harmless while we turned our entire solar system into a fortress. Yuna paused. "We are not proud of the deception, but we are very good at it." "Why?" Voss asked. "Why hide? Why not reveal your strength and warn us away?" "Because warnings can be dismissed. Demonstrations cannot." Yuna met his eyes directly. "If we had shown you our weapons before today, you would have adapted. You would have built counters to them. You would have returned with different tactics. Instead, we waited. We let you believe you would win. And when you attacked, we showed you everything at once." Voss was silent for a long moment. Outside the window, Earth hung in the darkness, blue and white and peaceful. The planet that had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in hegemony history looked like any other world from this distance. Quiet, harmless. "The High Council will not accept this defeat," Voss finally said. "They will send more ships, larger fleets. They will burn your world to ash rather than admit they were wrong." "Perhaps," Yuna agreed. "But consider this, Commander. The weapons that destroyed your fleet today were our first response, our fastest weapons, our most precise." She leaned forward slightly. "They were also the weakest we possess." Voss felt something cold settle in his stomach. The weakest. "We built layers of defense. The outer layer stopped you. We never needed to activate the others." Yuna stood. "Your High Council can send more ships. They can send their entire navy. But they should understand something before they make that decision." "What?" "We are not a warlike species by choice. We fight among ourselves too often, and we are ashamed of that history. But that history taught us something valuable." Yuna walked to the window and looked out at her homeworld. "It taught us how to prepare for enemies, how to hide our strength, how to wait patiently for the right moment, and how to strike without mercy when that moment comes." She turned back to Voss. "Your people will be returned to you unharmed. You will be fed and cared for until arrangements can be made. This is not because we are weak. It is because we choose to be kind when kindness is possible. And when it is not possible?" Yuna did not answer. She did not need to. The debris field floating in space was answer enough. She left the room without another word. Commander Voss sat alone, staring out at the planet that had humiliated his entire civilization in less than 60 seconds. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real fear. Not of death or defeat. Fear of what humanity might become if anyone was foolish enough to threaten them again. 3 months passed. The debris field around Earth slowly dispersed, pushed outward by solar wind and the gentle gravity of distant planets. Cleanup crews worked day and night, collecting wreckage and cataloging what remained of the hegemony fleet. Scientists studied alien technology. Engineers took apart enemy weapons to understand how they worked. The prisoners were treated well. They received medical care, food, comfortable quarters. Some of them learned to speak human languages. A few even made friends with their guards. War had brought them here, but war was over now, and there was no reason for cruelty. Commander Voss spent his days reading. The humans had given him access to their history books, their literature, their art. He learned about their wars, their mistakes, their triumphs. He learned about the weapons they had used against each other for thousands of years. He learned how many times they had nearly destroyed themselves. And he understood, finally, why they had been so prepared for his arrival. Humans did not trust peace. They had learned, through painful experience, that safety was an illusion, that enemies could appear at any moment, that the only real protection was strength hidden behind a smile. They had built their trap not because they wanted war, but because they knew war would find them eventually. In the Seoul Command Center, Admiral Yuna prepared her final message. The communication arrays had been modified to broadcast across the galaxy, using frequencies the hegemony would recognize. Every word would be recorded. Every word would be analyzed by enemy strategists. She needed to choose carefully. Her team gathered around her. Commander Do-hwan, who had stood beside her through the longest night of human history. Lieutenant Taeho, who had grown from a frightened young officer into a steady presence she relied upon. Dr. Yoonji, whose weapons had cut through enemy ships like light through darkness. Captain Sangho, whose orbital platforms had performed perfectly. Commander Ji-yeon, whose nanomachines had turned advanced warships into floating tombs. "Are you ready?" Do-hwan asked. "No," Yuna admitted, "but I will do it anyway." She stepped in front of the recording device. The red light blinked on. Across the galaxy, receivers tuned to this frequency would capture her words and carry them to the halls of hegemony power. "To the High Council of the Hegemony," she began. Her voice was calm, steady. "3 months ago, you sent 12,000 warships to conquer our world. None returned intact. Your commander and approximately 2,000 of your personnel survived. They have been treated humanely and will be returned to you whenever you wish." She paused, letting the silence carry weight. "We did not seek this conflict. We do not desire your territory. We do not want your resources. We wish only to exist in peace, to trade with those who deal fairly, and to be left alone by those who do not." Her eyes hardened slightly. "However, we will make our position absolutely clear. Earth is not a world to be conquered. Any future attack against our planet, our people, or our interests will be met with force matching the threat. The weapons you faced in your first attack represented a small portion of our defensive capability. We possess other systems that we chose not to activate, systems that are considerably more powerful." She let that sink in before continuing. "We offer you a choice. You may consider this matter settled, return to peaceful relations, and receive your surviving personnel. Or you may attempt another assault and face the full consequences of that decision. We strongly recommend the first option." The recording ended. The red light blinked off. Do-hwan exhaled slowly. "Do you think they will listen?" "I think they will calculate," Yuna replied. "They will count their ships and our weapons. They will measure the cost of another attack against the cost of accepting defeat. And then they will choose whatever option costs less." "And if they choose war?" Yuna looked at her team, at the people who had built humanity's shield, at the defenders who had saved their entire species with 60 seconds of violence and 3 months of mercy. "Then we will be ready," she said. "We are always ready." 2 weeks later, a response came from the hegemony. It was not a declaration of war. It was not a threat. It was a request. The High Council wanted to send diplomats to discuss terms of peace. Lieutenant Taeho read the message 3 times before believing it. "They are asking for peace? After one battle?" "They are asking for survival," Commander Do-hwan corrected. "They have realized something that their military strategists missed. They cannot conquer a species that has spent its entire history learning how to kill each other. We have had too much practice." Admiral Yuna authorized the diplomatic meeting. It would take place on a neutral space station, far from Earth and far from hegemony territory. Both sides would send representatives. No weapons would be permitted. The goal was simple: establish rules that would prevent future conflict. Before the meeting, Commander Voss requested one final conversation with Admiral Yuna. She granted it. They sat in the same room where they had first spoken. Outside the window, Earth still hung in the darkness, patient and peaceful. "I have a question," Voss said. "One I have been thinking about since that first day." "Ask." If your weapons were truly the weakest you possess, what are the strongest? What would you have used if we had continued fighting? Yuna considered the question carefully. She could lie. She could exaggerate. She could refuse to answer. But she had learned something about Commander Voss in these 3 months. He was not a monster. He was a soldier who had followed orders. He deserved honesty. "There is a reason we fight each other so often," she said finally. "Humans are very good at finding new ways to cause destruction. We have weapons that can crack planets open. We have weapons that can make stars burn too bright and too fast. We have weapons that can unmake matter itself." She met his eyes. "We have had these weapons for a long time. We have never used them. We hope we never will." Voss was quiet for a moment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to take a message back to your council. A message more important than any peace treaty." Yuna leaned forward. "Tell them that humanity does not want to be their enemy. We do not want to destroy their worlds or burn their cities. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to share knowledge and build something together that neither of us could build alone." She stood and offered her hand in the human gesture of greeting and farewell. "But if they force us to be their enemy," she finished, "then they should know exactly what that means. And they should choose very, very carefully." Commander Voss took her hand. His grip was firm. His eyes showed understanding. "I will tell them," he promised. "I will make them listen." 1 month later, the peace treaty was signed. Trade routes opened between Earth and the hegemony. Prisoners went home. Scientists began sharing discoveries. Artists exchanged ideas. Children learned about creatures from other worlds in their schools. Humanity had won its first war against the stars, not through hatred, not through conquest, but through strength so overwhelming that no one dared test it twice. Admiral Yuna retired from military service the following year. She spent her remaining days teaching young officers about strategy and patience and mercy. She told them stories about the night when the galaxy tried to crush humanity and humanity pushed back. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the message Earth had sent continued traveling outward, a warning and an invitation, wrapped together in words of steel and silk. Earth was not a world to be conquered, but it could be a very good friend to those wise enough to ask.